Our new mission is to bring the world closer together. We're a company that focuses on connecting.
These executives, they know the harm that this product does. The hypocrisy is at every level.
Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg are furious about this new book. But why this book? There have been books, movies, investigative reports that have painted Facebook in a negative light for years. What's in these pages that they don't want people knowing?
Meta has gone to the courts to block a former executive and now whistleblower.
Meta says the book is filled with false accusations.
A Meta spokesperson called Wynn-Williams' testimony divorced from reality.
Here's the thing. Careless People isn't just another tech expose. It's an insider account from someone who was deep in Facebook's inner circle. And if what's in here is even 75% true, it's devastating. Not just for what happened then, but for what Meta still is today. I read the book cover to cover, so you don't have to. And here's what it uncovers. Facebook's role in elections and genocide around the world. How Facebook employees literally worked with the Trump campaign in 2016. Zuck's awkward obsession with China. And the not so empowering reality of the lean-in feminism at Facebook HQ. I'll walk you through the wildest revelations in Careless People and why Meta is doing everything it can to keep this book from going viral. So who wrote this book? And why does Meta want her legally muzzled? Careless People is written by Sarah Wynn-Williams, Facebook's former director of public policy. She joined the company in 2011 after pitching her own job into existence. She was eventually laid off in 2017 for poor performance. We'll get into why that's in quotes later. Sarah worked closely with top Facebook executives, Zuck, Sheryl, Joel Kaplan, Elliot Schrage, the A-team. She wasn't just some mid-level manager. She was in the room when Facebook was making the decisions, especially the ones involving governments. Sarah believed that Facebook could be a force for good. She has this almost spiritual optimism about it, probably tied to how she survived a shark attack as a kid. She saw how Facebook helped people connect and obtain critical information after the Christchurch earthquake in her native New Zealand. And she thought, whatever Facebook decides to do with the voices gathering on here, it could change the course of human events. It did, just not the way she hoped or intended. So she joined Facebook's newly formed global policy team, thinking that she'd help guide the company's relationships with governments around the world. But what she found instead was a growth machine with the moral compass of a Roomba. And the first place she was sent? Myanmar. Facebook was blowing up in Myanmar. Fresh out of a civil war, people were just getting on the internet. And to most, Facebook was the internet. But there was a problem. Myanmar's new government was about to pass a law that would effectively ban Facebook. So Sarah was sent there to figure it out and make the problem go away. And she found two problems in Myanmar. Fake news and hate speech on Facebook was stoking ethnic tensions between the majority Buddhists and the minority Muslims.
Facebook is hugely popular among Myanmar's small but growing community of internet users, but it has also become the unwitting host of hate speech.
And people were using Facebook to talk shit about the military junta, which he did not like. So when tensions flared and no one at Facebook was picking up the phone, the government's solution was just turn it off.
Attempts by military juntas, such as we're seeing now, to try to clamp down on not just Facebook, but the platforms that Facebook owns.
Facebook executives had no idea this was happening because their international operations were basically held together with glue and popsicle sticks. Sarah managed to smooth things over and warned Facebook's leadership about the risks of ignoring Myanmar. And then, Facebook ignored Myanmar. Cut to 2017.
The military is accused of killing thousands of Rohingya, committing widespread rape, and burning down entire villages.
Violence erupted in Myanmar's Rakhine state. More than 700,000 Rohingya Muslims fled the country.
The attack against Rohingya was widespread and systematic, which is crucial for reaching a determination of crimes against humanity.
The UN said that Facebook played a determining role in the genocide. Amnesty International called out Meta's algorithm and their relentless pursuit of profit. And Facebook's own report in 2018 admitted they weren't doing enough to stop offline violence. Facebook's report implies that they didn't know any of this was happening. But they did. They just didn't care. In 2017, the Myanmar government reached out to Sarah, pleading to take down Islamophobic fake news and calls for violence. Sarah investigated and found out the problem was way worse. The Facebook app didn't work properly in Myanmar, so people were installing bootleg versions on their phones. Those versions couldn't flag or report content, meaning misinformation spread freely. And the only person moderating Burmese content was working out of Dublin, Ireland. Oh, and he sympathized with the Buddhist extremists carrying out the genocide. You'd think this would trigger DEFCON 1, but instead, Facebook execs shrugged. Facebook did eventually commit to fixing things in 2018 after the report came out. They'd hire Burmese-speaking moderators. They'd fix the app and crack down before Myanmar's next election in 2020. But this was after thousands were killed. And these were all things that Sarah warned them about years earlier. And if you think Myanmar was a one-time thing, hold my beer. You'd think, after being called out by the UN for fueling a genocide, that Facebook might have paused and said, okay, maybe we don't do that anymore. Nope. They hit copy-paste on that entire thing and ran it back. This time, in the Philippines.
Hardline anti-crime mayor Rodrigo Duterte is poised to become the next president of the Philippines.
Rodrigo Duterte, a man who joked about murder on the campaign trail, used Facebook as a disinformation machine.
This platform that is supposed to cultivate and encourage democracy, do you think it has become the opposite of it for Philippine elections, to be particular?
I think it's not just Facebook that should be accountable. Yes, it is damaging the democracy, the platform.
Fake news, troll farms, bots, live stream threats, the works. Duterte rose to power using the same system employed in Myanmar that Sarah warned Facebook about less than a year later. Same shit happened in Mexico, France, and Sri Lanka, among others. And in 2016, the playbook became policy. Facebook went full America on it. Here's the part that didn't get nearly enough attention. Facebook wasn't just the platform hosting the chaos. They were on the team creating it. Sarah writes that Facebook literally had employees embedded with the Trump campaign, working side by side with Brad Parscale, who led Trump's digital campaign, helping them run the most targeted, sophisticated, and yes, misinformation-fueled ad campaign in history. Facebook had engineers, product managers, comms teams, all dedicated, working on the election. Internally, employees were calling it the Facebook election. So 2 days after the election, when Zuck comes out and said,
the idea that fake news on Facebook influenced the election in any way, I think is a pretty crazy idea.
What's crazy, Zuck? Behind the scenes, even Zuck's own team was trying to explain to him what happened. They told him that the Trump campaign had built a database called Project Alamo, and Facebook helped them tap into it. Here's how it worked. Step 1. Trump's team collected a terrifying amount of personal data, credit card history, voter registration, gun ownership, car preferences, and much, much more. Step 2. They used a Facebook tool called Custom Audiences from Custom Lists to match that data with Facebook user profiles. Step 3. They used a tool called Lookalike Audiences to find people with similar interests, like, say, people who like a specific kind of truck. Step 4. They micro-targeted messages like build the wall for the MAGAs and tax-deductible childcare for moms. At any given moment, tens of thousands of ads were running. Most of these ads were cheap to run because the content was inflammatory, and inflammatory content drives engagement, and Facebook's algorithm likes that. Sarah writes that Facebook's CTO, Andrew Bosworth, called it the single best ad campaign he's ever seen. And he's not wrong. As someone who works in advertising, that's basically the holy grail. High precision, low cost, endless iteration. And Facebook provided this white glove service to Trump's campaign. But when the team suggested to Zuck that maybe we should get ahead of this and put out a statement, Mark put out, "We take misinformation seriously. We've been working on it for a long time. There's still more work to do. Translation? We ain't doing shit because it's making us money. And Sheryl? She heard this story and deadass went, whoa, can we hire Brad? She later walked back on it because her lean-in girlies started shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Even Barack Obama, whom Mark admires a lot, pulls Zuck aside and says, Mark, Facebook is playing a destructive role in global politics. Zuck's reaction? Obama doesn't get it. Fuck that guy. Zuck's big takeaway wasn't, we need to fix this. It was, the mainstream media failed and they're scapegoating us. And the solution to this, Mark? We buy the New York Times, or we build a news org from scratch, so Facebook doesn't just gatekeep the news, we own it. But it doesn't stop there. Those same advertising tools that the Trump campaign used to win, they were later offered to the far-right group in Germany and Marine Le Pen's campaign in France. You want to win an election? Here's the Facebook starter pack. TM. And this was never about politics. It's all about leverage. Facebook would have given these tools to Democrats if they'd play ball. The strat is to give political parties a taste of what Facebook could do for them. And in return, when elected, those governments would turn a blind eye on regulating Facebook. And Zuck was willing to go deep on that strat when it came to operating in China. While Facebook was ignoring genocide in Myanmar, while it was helping Duterte livestream executions in the Philippines, and while it was providing bespoke advertising services to the Trump campaign, Zuck had bigger dreams. And those dreams were made in China. Zuck has a huge obsession with China.
Sometimes they say huge.
So obsessed that he was willing to give up everything for it. Let me paint the picture. Facebook was banned in China. But even in 2017, Facebook still made $5 billion from Chinese advertisers. That was 10% of Facebook's total income from a country where it was technically illegal. So imagine how much money and data Facebook could collect if it were operating on the inside. And Zuck was down bad for China. According to Sarah, he bought Instagram partly because it was available in China at the time. In 2015, at a state dinner, he asked China's leader in GigaChat, Xi Jinping, to name his unborn child, only to be met with rejection. He learned Mandarin. And Sarah shares an amazing story from 2016. She couldn't get Mark a formal meeting with Xi, but she was able to wrangle a spontaneous encounter at APEC, a meeting of Asian world leaders. Zuck was set to finish his speech, just as Xi was arriving to give his. The hope? They'd cross paths backstage, shake hands, maybe exchange a few Mandarin phrases. Mark was practicing. Dude was locked in. This was it. But as Xi enters the venue, a thick line of men moves into formation, creating an impenetrable dividing line between Xi's dressing room and Mark's. One that stretches all the way down the hall. A Chinese human wall. They couldn't even see each other. Zuck's feelings were hurt, but he kept trying. According to Sarah, Facebook partnered with a company called Honey. They were building facial recognition software, photo tagging for moderation, at least a team of 100 moderators, an emergency kill switch to shut down content coming from specific regions, and an emergency extreme content switch, what a mouthful, to suppress viral posts, especially during protests and civil unrest. Zuck even agreed to let China access Facebook's internal data warehouse, something that the US government has asked for and had been repeatedly denied. And remember Myanmar? Some of these tools and moderators might have helped prevent a genocide. But it gets even better. Facebook's own risk assessment team said not only would it be possible for China to access data hosted outside of Facebook's Chinese servers, but that it would highly happen. And not only that, they said that the US intelligence community would likely do the same. If that doesn't prove that Zuck knew the risks, he also held murder board sessions, essentially mock congressional hearings, where he would rehearse how to dodge questions from Congress. Zuck was advised to never directly admit that they built censorship software in collaboration with the CCP. never directly admit US user data would be accessible to the CCP, and more importantly, stay vague. Then, in 2018, Mark sat before Congress.
Given the numbers that we have here today,
he's asked what he'd be willing to give up to operate in China. And he responded, well, we're blocked in China, so I don't know how the government would want us to regulate. As Sarah has laid out for us, Zuck knew. Facebook was actively building surveillance tools for China before this congressional hearing. Zuck lied to Congress under oath and got away with it. And the thing is, after all that, in 2025, Facebook still isn't legal in China. Facebook compromised on everything for nothing. And if you're thinking, well, at least Facebook is a progressive and empowering workplace, right? Yeah, about that. So while all this stuff was happening on the world stage, genocide, election rigging, appeasing authoritarian governments, Sarah was dealing with a completely different nightmare inside Facebook's walls. For the company whose COO literally wrote the book on female empowerment, the reality could not be more hypocritical. Let's start with Sheryl, poster child for corporate feminism, queen of lean in, and apparently the kind of boss who thinks mentorship means lingerie shopping. According to Sarah, Sheryl had a habit of hiring lean-in fangirls as personal assistants. Young women she could mold, mentor, and take on luxury work trips where boundaries got extremely blurry. One of those assistants, Sadie, told Sarah that Sheryl made her buy $13,000 of lingerie, had her come over to Sheryl's house to do a haul try-on over dinner, and often had her take turns sleeping on her lap during work trips. Eventually, Sadie got uncomfortable and started distancing herself. And if we've learned anything about powerful people and bruised egos already, yeah, Sheryl took it personally. And Sheryl leaned into Sarah as well. On a company jet, Sheryl comes out of the jet's private bedroom and tells Sarah, who's 8 months pregnant, to get into bed with her. Sarah said no. Sheryl insisted again, and Sarah held firm. Later, Sheryl turned to Sarah and said, "You should have gone in that bed." And all of this was happening right in front of the other Facebook execs. This is coming from the same woman who wrote, "There's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women." But Sheryl wasn't the only one creating a toxic culture. Let's talk about Joel Kaplan, Sarah's boss at the time, and today Meta's Chief Global Affairs Officer. Joel had a reputation, and Sarah's stories about him are... yeah. He once approved one of Sarah's hires, then asked, "Who's your sugar daddy?" Joke? Maybe. Went on maternity leave, and recovering from life-threatening childbirth complications, he asked her to explain where she was bleeding from and how breastfeeding works. Just ignorant man things. Plausible. Later, at a Facebook party, Joel saw Sarah and said, "Sarah Wynn-Williams is looking sultry tonight," and proceeded to grind on her on the dance floor.
Fatality.
I can't say this is surprising, coming from the guy who strongly advocated for Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court. All of this was also happening during the height of the Me Too movement, right as Uber's Susan Fowler was blowing the whistle on sexual harassment in tech. And Sheryl was publicly calling on companies to improve their harassment policies. But meanwhile, back at Facebook HQ, Sarah reported Joel's behavior and she was told, "If you keep quiet, he'll stop." Sarah agreed. Joel retaliated immediately, demoting her. The harassment continued, and Sarah went to HR, and they opened an investigation on Joel. And surprise, nothing happened. Shortly after, Sarah was laid off for poor performance. And Sheryl, she watched this all happen. Joel reported up to her, and that's what makes it so damning, coming from the critically renowned author of Lean In. So yeah, there's a lot more that happens in the book, but I wanted to focus on these stories specifically because they don't just paint a picture of a company that made a few mistakes. They show a company that knew exactly what it was doing and that it was bad, and they kept doing it anyway. Genocide warnings? Ignored. Election manipulation? Enabled. Sexual harassment? Rampant. But when you line up the actions against the public image, it's almost impressive how deep the hypocrisy runs. Facebook told us they were making the world more open and connected. But what they were really doing was making it easier for the worst people to win, and covering their asses when it backfired. Meta's official stance is that none of Sarah's claims are true because they won the gag order. But if you've been paying attention to Facebook for the last decade, none of this should really be that shocking. The only thing that is shocking is how long they've been able to get away with it. And hey, after this video, I can guarantee that I'm never getting a job at Meta now. So if you liked it, please subscribe and watch these other videos where I dig into the companies shaping our lives. Sarah's book, Careless People, is linked below. Thanks for watching.